This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Running a business shouldn't feel like surviving a software group project. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in, an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together, from sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, all in one powerful platform. No messy integrations, no bouncing between tabs, and best of all, no spreadsheets. Stop managing software and start managing your business with one unified system. Try for free today at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
Hello, this is Mark from the Swamp School, and I want to welcome you to American Wetlands Month. It's May of 2021, and it is the time we celebrate American Wetlands Month. A little late with this broadcast. We usually try to do this the first Monday of the month, so welcome to this first Wednesday of the month, rather. And this is the second Wednesday of the month, so I'm a little bit late. I apologize for that. I'm doing a lot of traveling, trying to get back into the swing of things. So, this week, we're going to be talking about jobs. It is a big topic. Lots of new grads hitting the streets, basically ready to get out there and do some good work with their brand new, freshly pressed degrees. And it appears that there are a fair number of jobs out there. You know, you'll see, of course, in the service industries and, the food industries and things like that, they're doing signing bonuses and everything else to go work at McDonald's. But we're not quite there yet with the wetland delineation business. But it is actually kind of impressive to go through the number of places that are actually hiring right now. There's a lot of work going on. A lot of it is related to the development industry, related to commercial and residential development. Tremendous boom in the Southeast. In Pennsylvania, pretty much everywhere. There's a lot of growth going on. The infrastructure issues are still kind of tenuous for the energy industry, and of course, I'm making this recording during the middle of our pipeline shutdown. Hopefully, that's back on today, and still haven't bought any gas. I haven't bought any gas until actually I filled up just before this started, so I'm being good and I'm not panic buying. So it is hopefully we'll get some gas shortly. But I only have about a 5-mile commute, so this isn't so bad. So at any rate, what I did want to talk about, though, as far as jobs go, is getting ready for the job, and some sort of tips and tricks on some of the new graduates on what you can kind of focus on. One of the main things that the employers are looking for is experience, and that's been really, really hard to do this year, especially if you're a recent grad. There was no opportunity to do any internships pretty much all last year, so if you're doing like from junior to senior year, there were no internships, which you can take two different ways. One is bummer you didn't get an internship, but two, no one else did either, so you're in good stead. And that kind of speaks to why there's so many employers looking for people, because they would have brought on interns last year. They would have seen a little bit of attrition, because that does happen. Not everybody wants to do this type of work. And then, they'd be, maybe the hiring would be a little bit slower. Well, what's happened is there's been really no interns to speak of, and no internships, and no one really with any real experience doing this. So they're looking for some new and exciting ways to, find people and go through kind of a vetting process. And we obviously have some suggestions with our training, because certainly training is a big part of that. And so if you do have some wetland related training, especially wetland delineation training under your belt, that is definitely going to get you to the top of the resume pile. But that is not the only thing, but it is pretty important. Now, a couple other things about looking for a job, and this is sort of just kind of a general advice, is just because you send in a resume and you don't hear back from the employer, and for example, if you sent one in, let's say in January, February of this year, and here it is May, and you haven't heard back, and you just assume, well, they didn't hire anybody, or they didn't hire me, or whatever. Really, the issue that the employers have is that they are totally overwhelmed with applicants. Now, many, and I would say probably most, are not really qualified for the job. There are a number of applicants that'll submit a resume, and they're from another country and they're just looking to try to get in here somehow, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but the issue is are they qualified for the job? And so they're just kind of blanketing the entire job market with resumes, and they may have a PhD and they might have all kinds of cool skills and stuff, but that may not necessarily be the right person for that job. And so it's really tough on the employers to try to sort out who is the best fit for the job. So that is one thing, is just to be persistent. Don't just send one resume out. Send 50, 100, whatever you need to do. Hit everybody, and hit everybody multiple times. A lot of times it's just that persistence that will rise to the top. And really, quite frankly, a big part of the career path that you look at when you're doing a wetland career is also your ability to market yourself and market your company and market your work. Well, if you're persistent and you're showing good marketing skills in going after this job, that is something the employer is going to be looking, well, hey, maybe this person will help us win some work. And that is as valuable to the company as any work you would do in the field, to be honest with you. So that's an important key. So just keep pushing on that, and don't worry about being annoying and all that kind of stuff that people start to stress about. No, just send in the resumes. I would rather have 5 resumes from the same person over the span of 5 months. Every month they send me a resume. I'll certainly remember them. And, sooner or later, I may just break down and, maybe call them in for an interview. And that's the goal. The other thing is, when you're doing a resume and when you're doing a, initial contact, you do have to break up the process a little bit. The initial resume that you send and the initial contact, the sole goal is to get that first interview. It's not to get the job, it's to get the interview. And so you want to be persistent on that. And while most employers do not make a decision based solely on one resume that's submitted, and you're like, okay, we're rejecting a person. Though they may have some kind of sort as to why they're rejecting them. And one of the odd ones that a lot of people don't even realize is that geography is a big sort, and simply that you don't live in the town where the employer is, and so they're only going to want to look at people that they don't have to relocate. And so that is probably one of the most important things, which really speaks to make sure you put your address on your resume. If you don't put your address on your resume, which a lot of people just put on their either email address or their LinkedIn address or something like that, but they don't actually put their physical address, an employer may just put you in the no thanks pile simply because you're not in that location where they are. And again, they don't want to have to deal with relocation, and they're dealing with a pile of resumes where they say, okay, well, I've got a resume that's from the same town or same county, at least something like that. Then that's the person I might just want to call in because they're local, and that's pretty important. So using the old real estate adage of, on real estate, location, well, that applies to the job too, is are you close enough to this employer that, you would have, the ability to work without having to be relocated. Now, if relocation is the only option and you've got to do that, well, then simply address that. Say, I'm willing to relocate, and that's something you can put on there. Now that it's going to put you in a tier 2. I'll be brutally honest with you, it's going to be a tier 2 kind of thing, but it will, at least you let them know you're addressing it. You're aware that, you're in Pennsylvania and the job's in North Carolina, for example. So, or vice versa, so what is the situation? How are you going to deal with it? Why are you applying for this job? And put that in your cover letter, deal with that. And don't forget that there should be a cover letter. So even if they don't ask for one, give them one anyway. And if they ask for, the filling out the thing online, and basically filling out the form, the web form or whatever they have, for you to apply, follow it up with a written letter, follow it up with any sort of, correspondence that, would, again, you want to stand out from your peers. And that's a key point. So that's just a few quick tips on that in terms of getting the interview. That's probably the most important thing, is getting the interview. Once you get in the door, then you kind of, you've got to work on your presentation skills. You want to make sure that you're neat and clean and dressed. And I guess as a little pet peeve of mine, if you're applying for a job and you want, it's a professional job, you need to dress appropriately. You shouldn't be coming in, in field clothes. Okay, now that may be your job, but there's an old adage, goes back to a book written many, many years ago called Dress for Success, which is you can never overdress for any occasion like that. You can never be overdressed. So if you wear, a tie and, suit and tie if you're a guy, or a nice dress if you're a lady, And, it's like, wow, you are so much better dressed than the person you're interviewing with. Well, that'll make you stand out. You're the tie guy, or something like that. You're the guy that wore the tie. Everybody else is coming in, jeans and a t-shirt, looking kind of cool. Well, that's not going to cut it. It's definitely going to stand out. You do want to look professional. So that's a key point in the interview. But beyond that, pay attention to a lot of the different jobs boards. Unfortunately, the Society for Wetland Scientists jobs board seems to have been shut down. It looks like they're moving over to a LinkedIn sort of platform, but unfortunately, it's not monitored the way they used to do it. They had a really good one. I mean, for 30 years, they had a really good jobs board, and that seems to have gone away. We are in the process. Well, actually, we have a jobs board. We're trying to get folks interested in posting. There's no charge to either post or to review or to respond. We don't actually get into the, we're not like Indeed or anything. You just simply respond back to the employer. But if you're an employer looking to hire people, this is sort of a pre-vetted, idea that, it's a niche sort of website. So presumably people only interested in wetlands would be looking on that page, and so you'll get you will get less people that would be less qualified for the jobs, hopefully. But we highly encourage you to do that. You can just go to swampschool.org. You'll see a place in there for employers to post a job, and then also a place for employees and prospective employees to look for a job, and that's kind of the goal there. So with that, that was just a quick rundown of jobs and what we can do to try to get back in the workforce and get things going. And again, lots of jobs out there, not really hard to find. So it's good in that business, but also lots of competition. So just want to stand out. So with that, I wish you a great day, and I hope to see you in the swamp. And we'll see you next month, and we'll see what else we can come up with. So take care.
Hi, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. Are you looking for a beach read this summer? May I suggest your big wireless bill? It's got suspense, mystery, a slightly flat emotional arc, and a shocking twist where you realize you've been overpaying the entire time. Fortunately, though, Mint's story is better. Every plan, $15 a month, even unlimited. That's it. Happy ending, zero tears. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3 months, $90 for 6 months, or $180 for 12-month plan required. $15 per month equivalent. Taxes and fees extra. Initial plan term only. Greater than 50 gigabytes may slow when network is busy. See terms.